So I just heard something very fascinating today. So let's talk about it. So there's a channel on YouTube by a girl named Jamie French. I actually watch her quite often. I find her to be very funny. And she was discussing a podcast that is out now. That's very popular, you know, up there with Joe Rogan. And I was like, what? I must hear more.
Says Tuah is now the third most popular podcast in the US behind Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson.
If you don't remember the girl that did that street interview where she was talking about Tuah spitting on that thing.
Oh, you gotta give him that Tuah and spit on that thing, you get me?
Yeah, so she became super popular. I'm sure we all know that, whether we wanted to know that or not. She became super popular, felt like overnight, and she took that success and decided to create a podcast called Tuah.
She's literally doing anything to stay relevant.
Does anyone actually give a fuck about her?
Why are we keeping this girl relevant?
Your 15 minutes are up.
Your joke was funny for 2 days. Stop.
Y'all really thought I was done? I'm just getting started, baby.
Said Tuah when she was known as Tuah. I like the play on words. I had so many things went through my mind. So many things. What does success mean anymore? What does being famous, what does being popular mean anymore? It reminded me immediately of how we made Bad Baby super successful.
Catch me outside, how about that?
We took that chick, made that whole phrase super popular.
Catch me outside, how about that? Catch me outside, how about that?
And then she became a successful rapper.
Gucci flip-flops, make a kick rocks. It's a big clock.
And a very rich multi-millionaire on OnlyFans.
The 19-year-old took to Instagram on Monday, April 25th, showing her OnlyFans history with almost $53 million worth of earnings, of which she took home $42.3 million in net revenue.
Before she even turned 21. This world is going to hell so fast.
I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
I just don't understand how we put certain people on pedestals to reach this level of success only to complain about the things that they do once they get to that level. It's so weird to me. I remember a time in Hollywood when Hollywood was like a thing that people respected. You didn't know what the actors were actually thinking in their brains. Actors and celebrities don't give a shit if you like them or not. And now you see the fruits of that because no one gives a shit about them anymore.
People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel.
But there used to be a time when you used to have to be like the triple threat. You had to be a singer, a dancer, and act. Now, granted, not everybody had to follow that, but that was a thing that was known in Hollywood. Outside of those people that just didn't really do that, but they were actually really good at acting and only talked about acting. Nowadays, social media has made it really easy for you to decide whether or not this celebrity is worth your time or not.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility for every time it was easier to ignore than to call it out for what it was.
Every not so funny joke.
Every blatant injustice, no matter how big or small.
Every time I remained silent.
Every time I explained away police brutality.
It's Hollywood, baby. It's Hollywood, baby. It's Hollywood, baby.
On top of which, films are just being ran into the ground. IPs are just being destroyed. Celebrities are not that big of a deal anymore. So then you have influencers. And influencers were just random, everyday people that just had a camera, access to the internet, and they were just doing things and just being super personal. Like they were you. They weren't necessarily the richest, not the best quality when it came to videos, but they were creating content that was way more relatable because they were basically just like you. And so we put them at a level of success where it was like, oh shoot, if they can do that thing that I like watching them do and become successful, I can do the same thing. And so you had a lot of people turning around and wanting to be content creators because it made sense.
A recent study found about 1 in 3 American kids between the ages of 8 and 12 aspire to be either a vlogger or a YouTuber.
And then something happened along the way. I don't understand it. Everybody started having MTV Crib minds. They got to a level of success where then they all of a sudden had to start flaunting it to the same people that got them the success that they received.
These are my ladies. This is Jill. This is my lady Amy. Little Susie. Brianna. You know why we call her Brianna, right?
And it started looking like they were almost bragging about the success that they have and the millions of dollars that they had and the expensive cars and shoes and jewelry and the big house. And it turned into, did we just create a monster? People like to claim like, oh, my life would be so much better if I had money. But it's funny how money can really just amplify someone's true character. And you start seeing a lot of dark shit when it comes to people when they start getting and hitting a certain level of success. Don't worry, I'm getting back to the Tuah girl in a second. Follow me. When you see people, to be honest, have no real talent, but then they pop off of something that they said, they're not proving to you at all that they're worth the fame and the popularity that they are getting. We just saw something in them, heard something that they said, and was like, you know what? That shit's awesome. We need to make this stuff go viral. And I think the whole idea of stuff going viral has been the death of everything that I loved about media. You see people just doing stuff to go viral, and it is some of the most cringiest things you will ever see.
Is it smashable proof?
Right here.
Oh my goodness.
Everybody wants a viral moment. And so let's go back to Tuah girl. So she ends up getting this overnight success basically off of just saying Tuah spit on that thing. And then she decides to create a podcast, which is such a weird transition. You get successful and then you just automatically want to create a podcast. I'm not saying that she can't, but what I'm explaining is I'm not anywhere close to the success that I need to be at. I'm not rich. I'm not poor, but I'm definitely in the more relatable sense where if I can create a podcast, you can create a podcast because it doesn't take a lot of money to create a podcast. Now, if you want to be decked out with a studio with upscale mics and a whole couch, table, big sign set up, all right, you know, if you want to go down that route, that's totally fine. There's no right way to do a podcast. You just talk about something that's interesting to people, and thus it will become successful. This is what she wanted to do. And she was able to get celebrities on, very successful influencers.
But you've had Jake Paul on?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes, so far.
Jake's pretty wild.
He's a little spooky to talk to.
Really?
That's like a man, you know.
Yeah.
That is not like a little soft boy, you know. It's easy to talk to. That's a whole man right there.
Yeah.
So I was like,
yeah.
To me, it's just very interesting because you got famous off of something that you said.
Crazy how I said 2 words and now I'm hearing it.
It's pretty wild.
With no context behind why you think this podcast would last. And like I said from the beginning, her podcast is supposedly just as good, if not as successful as Joe Rogan's. And I've listened to Joe Rogan's podcast. A lot of variety when it comes to his podcast, but also he's been doing it for a while, which is another thing that's really iffy about the fact that she's as successful as the Joe Rogan podcast. He'll debate people on his podcast. It's totally fine. Not everybody that's on his podcast is someone that he agrees with. But you got Tuah, so like you're just going to stick with Tuah and just talk about people having sex? I feel like there's already a very super successful podcast out that talks about sex, and that's Call Her Daddy. And not that she's the only one, but I feel like you created your podcast based around that line that you said in that interview that made you popular. How long is that supposed to last? I wouldn't mind listening to it if there was something going on that was interesting to me. Now, granted, she's way younger than me. She's like a whole child.
Do you hop to? Actually, yeah. See, it's not just for the straight people.
I spent like 60 grand in 1 weekend on this girl just to get laid, and it didn't work.
What?
Like, what is she saying that could be so interesting that someone like me would want to listen? And I don't really have those issues when it comes to age. Granted, a lot of people that are significantly younger than me, they do definitely have TikTok brain where they can't really be focused too much on one particular topic. They're always looking for something new. What I'm saying is that how is it possible that you waited until you were successful to create a podcast when that's something that you could create when you didn't have any money? So it's almost feeling like a little formulaic, like, okay, she became successful as an influencer, I guess. And now the next step, obviously, is to get a podcast. The next step is obviously to get a music deal somehow, like make music. There was a time where YouTubers being successful, and then they automatically went from YouTube to making music. And we all know that doesn't always work, because just because you're successful in one area of art doesn't mean you're going to be successful in the other area of art, because that's not how that works.
It's every day, bro, with the Disney Channel flow.
Just hearing that just made me like, we just make anybody famous.
I'm the monster that's been here all along.
Waiter with my Coke, who doesn't care about my health. There ain't no recipe for something good like yourself.
But it also made my head itch. We make people famous and successful, and then we complain at the end that this person is famous and successful. And granted, don't get me wrong, there are people out there hating on her.
This just shows like you could be doing the work, you could be hustling, and it's just who gonna get chosen, who not, just not. This is why I say life is not fair. It don't matter if you're good. It don't matter if you're bad. It don't matter if you sweat. Yeah, if you put your little, sweat, blood, and tears into it, yeah, you could get sent out. But it's just some people who just slip through the crack, and it don't fucking matter how hard you as an individual or how honest you've been working.
That's not a good way to live your life. It's not her fault that she just so happened to say a thing on a street interview that just so happened to get successful. I'm not even knocking her for that. Bitch, your friend was there. She could have said something, but you said it instead, and she was trying to act all nervous and scared in front of the camera.
What's one move in bed that make a man go crazy every time?
One what?
What's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time? That you do.
That I do.
Yeah.
Like, the fuck? It's just very fascinating to see what people see as popular and successful. I just remember there was a time where people actually had to be talented in stuff. Do that thing that it's hard for everybody to do. Literally, people are just out here just saying things, either being disrespectful or just talking very sexual, and they're becoming successful. It's just, what an interesting world that we live in. Alright guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you're always notified about the new videos that I have coming out. Let me know in the comments below. Are you guys just as fascinated as me to find out that this chick has a podcast? Has anybody heard the podcast? Do you think that we have just lost the definition of famous, popular, successful? I mean, the things that people make successful is just wild to me. There are so many people that I know that are just super talented, like way more talented than me. They're not even being noticed because they're not doing anything controversial or anything sexual or anything, But then you have people that are rude as hell on television or talking about sex stuff in interviews, and they're just like super popular. It's just very odd to me when I see it. It's like, I feel like we just lost the plot. Like, we're just making anybody famous and then complain when they get famous. It's like, what are you talking about? You made that video go viral. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this, because I'd be very intrigued to read what you guys think. Also, if you guys do not know, speaking of podcasts, I have a podcast where I talk about life as I'm traveling around Florida and meeting very interesting people along the way. It'd be really awesome if you guys check it out. I do put video content up there as well. Don't forget to follow, and if you enjoy it a lot, don't forget to rate it. 5 stars will be amazing. I love you all. It's one of those things where it's just like, we see what's happening in the world, and it's just like, you know what? We're just trying to grab onto anything that's going to excite us, because we can't depend on Hollywood to create great films for us. So let's see what's going on in social media. Oh, that chick said Tuah spit on that thing? Oh, cool. That's awesome. Like, we're just trying to grab anything entertaining. With that being said, I love you all, and I hope to see you all in the next video.